why you should buy from Ollo Audio. No, it's not the most beautiful headphone on the market. No, it is not made of the most high-grade materials. No, it doesn't have the audiophile sound. No, it's not the drool-inducing headphone that turns heads out of lust. But it is a headphone that easily competes with the big-name brands and beats them over and over again. I am on a quest to find cheaper alternatives to pricey audiophile hyped gear. And to be honest, I have found excellent contenders, some that you would never have considered. And that is precisely why I recommend the Ollo Audio headphones. You may not have heard of Ollo before. Don't worry, I had not either. I was in the market to buy a competitive headphone to the Neumann NDH-20. There were specific parameters. You see, I was convinced that the NDH-20 was significantly overpriced and its performance did not justify the hype. I also believed that if I looked hard enough, I would find a headphone that was cheaper than the NDH-20 but could keep pace with it. I looked for weeks before I finally stumbled onto a blurb on a website about Ollo Audio. I had not heard of them before. There were only a handful of YouTube videos regarding their headphones, and as you know by now, those videos were no more than 5 minutes long and spoke about, well, nothing. I reviewed Ollo's website, which was rather impressive. I looked at the price and was again impressed. So I took a plunge. And I have not regretted that purchase whatsoever. Ollo Audio is a small company in Slovenia. It was founded by a man named Rok Gulic, and there is a 98.7% chance I am butchering his name, so my apologies. Have you ever wondered how audio companies start? I mean, how did Beyerdynamic or Sennheiser or Sony or Audio-Technica start? Yes, they all have some sort of About Us page that recites a lengthy story about the company's greatness and advances, but it's never something personal, because those are faceless corporate entities. When you can connect with your audience is more likely to forgive small mistakes and to be more likely to be supportive of your work. Ollo Audio, it appears, has that background. On the contact page on Ollo Audio's website, Rok states that he had a problem to solve. He had needed to finish his music band CD and was running out of time. So he was spending late nights completing the mix. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, he was married with 2 young children. And late at night, using his typical headphones, he kept waking his family up because he had to keep driving his headphones louder and louder to get the headphones to reproduce the music properly. Rok says this pushed him to create a new way to hear and feel the music. This was the start of his company. Look, I cannot relate to wife and children, thank God, but I can relate to struggling with a headphone. I've said this before, your tool should not be fighting you. A tool is useful only if you can easily use it. If you have to modify the tool or make concessions to get it to work, you are simply wasting your time. This seems to have been the case with Rok. I bring all this up because small companies are hard to find these days, especially small audio companies. Yes, for every 5 Beyerdynamics there will be 1 ZMF, but that's a company that is easily outside the bracket of most people. This is where Ollo Audio steps in. Honestly, I was surprised to see the prices for their headphones. When I read that their headphones are hand-assembled and made to be fully disassembled for alterations, I figured I would have to spend several $100, upwards of $500. And when I saw that I could afford Ollo's headphones, that the headphones cost about $300, I recall getting a big grin on my face. And that grin has stayed in place. Let's talk about those headphones. Now, you might say that I'm gushing over this company. Well, that's true because I am. I am a strong proponent of supporting the small company. Yes, I know that Sony and Beyerdynamic have all the resources to engineer something amazing, but they rarely ever do. They just sit back and watch trends, follow others, and the vast majority of time fail to innovate. Small companies have to innovate to stand out. They have to take risks. They have to do things differently. Ollo Audio, in my opinion, has. They have two headphones, an open back headphone called the S4 and the closed back headphone called the S4R. I'm not sure how the naming convention started, but I assume it had something to do with the versions of prototypes Ollo had to go through before settling on these specific drivers. Usually, headphone companies have a gimmick. Let me correct that. Headphones companies always have gimmicks. They say lots of things without saying anything. It's a talent of marketing agencies and of John Darko, the worst audiophile reviewer on YouTube, although he does have stiff competition. Ollo does not have a gimmick. They, instead, have a promise. There's a big difference. They promise flat, neutral response from both their headphones, and to prove it, they do two things. First, they prominently display their master frequency response graph when you go to the headphones webpage. If you don't know what that is, it is the flattest, most neutral response graph I have ever seen. Second, they send you the response graph for your headphone that you ordered in the package. That's right. You don't get the printout of the master graph, you get the graph of your headphone. The only other company that I know that does this is Sennheiser, and frankly, they don't do it with all their headphones. The HD 800, 800S, and 820, for example, come with a frequency response graph. This is how you differentiate gimmick from promise. A gimmick is something a company says but has no way of proving. For example, the DT1770 provides spaciousness and excellent resolution, a statement that is not possible to prove by science. It's simply a flashy statement to make you think you're buying a good headphone when in reality you're being tricked into buying one of the worst headphones on the market. A promise is something a company says that is a fact and a provable one. This fact is not something based upon someone's personal sonic preferences. For example, when a company says that they have the most neutral headphones and provide a graph to demonstrate that, it's a promise backed by evidence. The S4, the open back, is for mixing. The S4R, the closed back, is for recording. You might scratch your head and ask, what's the difference? Well, that's a good question. If you are in the sound booth, you are mixing the track. You likely need an open back headphone so you can get a feel of how the music would sound through speakers. Open back headphones generally provide a more, quote, realistic sound representation, how you would hear it with just your ears at a live performance, for example. This is not always the case, but kind of the idea. If you are recording the song, for example, if you are the singer or the drummer or the guitarist, you need closed back headphones. You need to cut out the noise around you so you can concentrate on the track. You also don't want the sound coming from the headphone to leak into the microphone recording you. There you go, a simple explanation. But it's not that simple to make both open and closed back headphones sound alike. It is very hard to make closed back headphones have the same soundstage as an open back headphone. In other words, it would be preferred if you in the mixing booth heard the same thing that the artist is hearing in the vocal booth. If your artist thinks that her voice sounds a little scooped out, she might increase the pitch and volume. But if you in your mixing booth have a different headphone that shows the vocals ahead of the mix, the artist's increase in volume would suddenly throw off your mix. It's like riding a bicycle. If both wheels are spinning opposite directions, you aren't going anywhere. Let's talk about replacement parts. Remember I said that the headphones can be fully disassembled and parts replaced? That's because it's all true. Ollo has a webpage dedicated to spare parts. I'm not talking about the superficial parts, headband and ear pads. I'm talking about the real deal. Ollo sells the following: matched pair of speakers for both the S4 and S4R at approximately $28, ear pads with foam inserts for about $22, Replacement back covers for $16, which, by the way, you could theoretically switch, meaning you could buy the open back covers and then put them on the closed back S4R. The wooden ear cup housing for about $33, and really everything else that would create this particular headphone. Yeah, fully replaceable. This puts Beyerdynamic, Sennheiser, Sony, AKG, Audio-Technica, ZMF, Audeze, Hi-Fi Man, Grado, and practically every other headphone company to shame. This is a big deal. Why? Because headphone companies get you on a double whammy. Let us assume you buy a brand new Beyerdynamic headphone, and 375 days after your purchase, the driver dies. You find out that Beyerdynamic won't cover the failure. You have to send the headphone to a specific repair shop someplace. You pay a premium for the replacement plus shipping. You wait weeks to get your headphone back. You pay a premium for the headphones the first time, and then you pay a premium again when the headphone dies. But Ollo encourages you to fix the parts yourself and save money. $28 for a matched pair of headphone drivers. That's cheap. Yes, you'll likely need a soldering iron and a steady hand, but it is a job that is easily done with a bit of practice. You want to change your open back S4 to a closed back S4R? Go ahead, buy the replacement back cover and try it out. Did you chip the wood housing? No problem, you can have another one. Did you want to stain the wood housing to something darker or add your own artwork? Great, get the replacement housing, apply your artistic talents, and switch the original housing. Look, I know that most people aren't going to experiment, but the fact that you are both allowed to and encouraged to experiment is a breath of fresh air. The fact that you can get the original parts for every single piece on the headphone legally and cheaply from Ollo is another bonus. How often have audiophiles had to track down a driver or a replacement headband from eBay or some weird website, pensively clicking on the buy button, scared of the result? In my opinion, this is consumer-focused thinking on Ollo's part. They see the problem and have a solution. This is precisely the type of thinking that endears small companies to consumers, when they put the effort into making their products as good as possible and also respect the consumer. Let's talk about the sound signature. I have both the S4 and the S4R. I've had the S4R longer than the S4 and have done many tests with it, so my general sound impression will be regarding the closed-back S4R, but frankly, both headphones sound remarkably similar. The S4R is neutral without scooped frequencies. Neutral, to me, is flat. It is a frequency response that is not emphasizing any particular portion of the range. This is, to be honest, not possible. You can get close but never truly flat. Companies tend to cut corners. They make headphones flat-ish. It's flat enough. It's a lazy attempt, really. The S4R, however, through my various tests, shows that it is indeed as neutral as I have ever heard. The bass response is clear and unemphasized. Now, this doesn't mean that the bass is lacking. Quite the opposite. The bass is fast, meaning that the bass frequency decay is very quick. There's no lingering reverberation with drums or bass guitar. Each drum strike is separate. The bass instruments are easily discernible amongst each other, so the various bass instruments retain their individual character. You can easily tell when the guitar chimes in and when the drummer strikes the drum head. Low rumbling is present but doesn't distort the rest of the mix. However, the S4R does not provide visceral bass response, ear-piercing, hard-hitting bass that I've spoken of when I discuss things like the Audeze XC, the ZMF Atticus, or the One More triple driver. The mids are crystal clear. With multiple vocalists, I can easily hear the primary and backup vocalist most of the time. Each vocalist has his or own tonality. The slight variances in their singing is usually apparent. When one or more vocalists is slightly off-key, the S4R will reveal it. The bass does not overwhelm the mids. The mids do not become muddy in relation to the rest of the mix. The S4R has a fairly neutral treble. In some circumstances, depending on the recording, you will hear some sibilance. However, this is not the same type of sibilance that exists with most beyerdynamic headphones. Overall, the headphones do not become peaky or harsh or ear-piercing. The treble energy is apparent, and detail in the treble is easily found because the tonality does not become harsh. As for the soundstage, the S4R has about an average amount of soundstage. What does that mean? Well, in my very subjective definition, average means a medium-sized room that can hold 100 people comfortably, and you listen to the song with floor-standing speakers. The headphones do not have a claustrophobic presentation, nor do they provide an experience like hearing a band in a large field. The most important takeaway for me was that the S4R did not emphasize any particular frequency range to the sacrifice of any other. Headphones that emphasize the bass, for example, cut out the mids. Those that increase treble make vocals sound too harsh because of the natural sibilance while singing. Those that have a bump in the mids tend to decrease the bass response and leave the listener wanting more bass emphasis in comparison. But neutral is neutral. You get the majority of the song as it was recorded. Assuming you have high-quality music files, a decent DAC, and amplifier, a neutral headphone should be able to reproduce the song as the artist and producer heard it in the booth. In my opinion, the S4R gets this right. Zeos is a lying bastard. Oh yeah, I went there. Remember when Zeos had the Neumann NDH-20 and oozed about it? It is so good, he said, that he will never use his stupid Mr. Speaker's Ether C to monitor. He was adamant that the NDH-20 had unseated the ethers. He said that he had forced an unsuspecting woman to listen to the NDH-20 and she told him it was amazing. Now these are the types of scientific tests that make Zeos so trustworthy. I purchased the NDH-20 partly because Zeos was so complimentary about it. Lots of other reviewers seemed to agree, so I gave the NDH-20 a chance. And I realized that Zeos had lied. The NDH-20 are good headphones with mediocre soundstage, mediocre detail retrieval, mediocre frequency response, and absolutely not flat or neutral or designed for mixing and mastering. I have said this over and over again. You can use any headphone to mix and master. As long as you know the qualities of that headphone and what it adds or takes away from the original recording, you can use them to great effect. But to outright say that a headphone is designed for mixing and mastering also suggests that the headphones are neutral, because you want neutral, uncolored headphones to monitor the song. Yet, the NDH-20 was a disappointment. The bass is a bit loose, the soundstage is lacking, there is some separation of mids and vocalists, but the treble is significantly reduced. In other words, the headphones are purposefully designed for a warm sound signature. In my review of the NDH-20, I was so irritated about the lying hype that I sent myself on a mission to find a cheaper, better alternative. And I succeeded. Twice. The first was the NAD HP50, a significantly cheaper headphone that has noticeably more instrument and vocal separation, cleaner presentation without distortion, greater soundstage, more crisp treble without harshness. It was truly a night and day difference. The second was the S4R. The NAD HP50 is not like the S4R. They do not sound alike, but they had one common factor. They both presented the music with better detail retrieval, bass response was tighter and less emphasized, the mids were clearer and better separated, and the treble demonstrated greater energy without harshness, all when compared to the NDH-20. If I were to pick a headphone for mixing and mastering, between these three options, I would choose the Ollo first, then the NAD, and then the Neumann. That is not to say that the Neumann is a bad headphone. It isn't. It is in fact a very pleasant headphone, but not for mixing and mastering. It is an average sounding headphone that should be used for music enjoyment, not for critical listening. Add to Neumann's boiling pot of failure soup the fact that they do not provide a frequency response chart. I had to find a response chart from Superbest Audio Friends and compare it to other third-party charts, and the chart showed that the NDH-20 is not neutral. The chart could easily be mistaken for the blueprint for a new roller coaster ride at Universal Studios. Compare the two response charts, the Neumann and the Ollo. The differences are immediately apparent. Take the next step and listen to both back to back, and the sonic differences are also obvious. This brings us to the head-to-head comparison that so-called reviewers refuse to do. In a black void, a firefly will seem vibrant, but compared to a flashlight, the firefly is nothing. In other words, when so-called reviewers talk wonderful things about the NDH20, they do it without directly doing an A and B comparison to other headphones. They rely upon their own memories, and human memory is faulty at best. Well, if they bothered to do actual tests, they could confirm if they heard a fact or a self-created fiction. When I purchased the S4R, I was apprehensive. When I started comparing it to the NDH20, I was skeptical. And when I started to notice the clear differences, I became ecstatic. To this day, I remain an advocate for this unusual and little-known headphone. Why you should consider Ollo Audio. I hope everything we have talked about gives you more confidence in Ollo Audio. I don't know their end goal. Do they want to be the next Bear Dynamic or ZMF, or simply want to stay in a niche? I don't know if they have anything else in the works. But I can say that Ollo has made some excellent headphones. The company has demonstrated competence in both engineering and customer care. When Ollo headphones outshines the big-name brands at twice the price, you know the company has potential. And that is precisely why I ask you to consider Ollo Audio for your critical listening headphones. Look, I'm not paid by Ollo Audio. I'm not sponsored by them. They don't even know I'm making this video. But my experience with their headphones and their company has been positive from beginning to end. They have proven to me that they should be taken seriously. No, the Ollo headphones aren't the most amazing piece of gear you can buy. There's no doubt about that. And yes, there are other headphones that excel in one aspect or another. And true, I can think of several headphones that outdo Ollo headphones. But all of those headphones come at a significantly higher price tag. For affordable mixing and mastering headphones that claw their way up and past the likes of the NDH20, Ollo Audio headphones are an excellent bargain. Besides, if you want something unique, niche, and foreign, Ollo's headphones will give you plenty of bragging rights. I fully support Ollo Audio's headphones. Now, if only I could get my hands on their seat cushion that makes you feel the bass. Oh boy, I'd love to review that thing. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoy any of my other content, then please consider donating to me on Patreon. Even $2 a month would go a long way to help me save money. With that money, I buy new and older products to thoroughly test and compare. Unlike other reviewers, I take my time to get you the details others gloss over. If you are a regular viewer but have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We are close to the 700 subscriber mark, and I would love to get there before the end of the year. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. I try to answer every question. If you would like me to review a product I currently own, please click on the review request form link in the description section below. Fill that out, submit it, and I'll get your request as soon as I can. I hope all of you have a wonderful, amazing day. Take care.